Today we're going to be looking at some more Star Trek role-playing game from the mid to late 80s. And what we'll be doing today is making a character, as well as looking at some of the items within the game, what made it a little bit special and what makes it quite interesting and cool to play in a more modern era. One of the first things I always like to look at when looking at role-playing games is their character sheets. Just because that's obviously a part of where the game starts and what is supposed to be filled out, where the information is located, and how it's all sorted. When you have a lot of information on a page, you kind of want to know how to get to it simply and how easy it is to put it all together. Oftentimes the focus is on stats, and the stats are usually in the most prominent spot, whereas here it's kind of in the middle. And we have a few of these other weird parts of the chart. So what we want to look at is putting a character together and what makes this game a little bit different. So what we're going to start with is looking at some of the ways that we how we start all of this. So it's important to remember that this is a game that is primarily set in the original series, roughly in those 5-ish years or so that the USS Enterprise was going on its tasks, and probably just a little bit after as well. Maybe as far as the Wrath of Khan, which is a handful of years past the end of all the series and everything else, but definitely not into the field of the Next Generation. So there's still plenty of space for this game, if you wish to look for, to try and aim at and build new styles to it, while still maintaining the same basic elements of the characters, the game and everything else. Just a handful of differences along the way. But as we all know, the original series lasted for a few years on television, but it was also brilliantly followed up with the last couple of years with the cartoon series. And this game reflects pretty much a few pieces out of that as well as heading into a little bit of the motion picture, and as far as we said, the Wrath of Khan. But for the most part, it's all set roughly pre-original series up through to just towards the back end of the 5-year exploratory mission. So the first thing we look at in the game is actually where you want to start. That may not sound quite right, but when the game starts, the character has already performed a number of tasks and a few other missions beforehand, or a few other activities beforehand. So by the time that the quote-unquote role-playing game starts, your character has had a bit of a life, and from the moment that we begin this adventure, what is the current assignment, what is your rank, and so on. So this is where the players and the GM get together and work out where the actual games are going to be held. Are you going to be on a Constitution class starship? Is it going to be one of the other starships? Is it going to be some other part of the universe on a star base, or something else? So simply, where is the game going to start? What rank is the character going to be holding? You generally want to have a junior officer role, or even command crew, and you can even be the captain. But they all affect your journey to get to that point, and everything will, the skills, the pathways reflect all of that. But by knowing straight up what position you're taking will help shape everything from there. So if the game is going to begin and you're going to primarily have you and 2 other characters or 2 other friends play the security, science and communications, that's going to be the majority of the away team. Then we've padded out with some other characters. That's all good, and you just put that in here as to what you're going to be. Your specialized area, science officer, first officer, science/first officer. You could be commander, lieutenant commander, junior officer, department head of security, communications, so on. So where you end up, that's where the actual game starts. And now what we're doing is building the character up to that point for you to begin. So you may have already a number of skills. You'll be a certain age when you start, and it'll all be planned out up to that point, and then we can just start playing the game. So this is how this game is a little different, because in most other games, especially the ones in the 80s, you started out either as very much inexperienced and junior, and then you worked up to being the hero. This, you're sort of starting out as a bit of a hero, and you're cementing that with the rest of your career. So this area here, character's name, player, rank, age, race, etc., etc. Then we get into the final bits and pieces of scores. We'll work out a few of these along the way. These are all not all the skills, but a set of skills with spaces for more skills or skills that you wish to include that aren't there. These are your stats: strength, endurance, intelligence, dexterity, charisma. It does have a luck and also has a psionic. And these numbers down the side here are your action points. Depending on how many action points you have, it depends on what you can do. When you move, jump, roll around on the ground, dodge, flip things over, they all take up action points. So the more you have to spend in a combat round, the more actions you can do and the more things you're able to get on with. This here is what makes this game very cool. You've got 2 parts to your, well actually 3 parts to your early career. One is your pre-academy, then you have your academy, then you have your initial service before you start your final service, which is where the game starts. See term in years, and so on. So starship, capital ship, like a Constitution classes, etc. Exploration division, military division. So these are all your fields that you can work in, and then the same when you do your service. You'll have a length of service and how many terms before you do your final mission. In the game, the Federation, whilst it does have numerous amount of aliens, and you can create more alien races and species however you want as the DM, GM, judge, referee, you can do all of that. Primarily, we've got the founding races being human, Andorian, Tellarite and Vulcan, and the earliest additional members to be part of the Federation, which are the Caitians and the Adoans. Now you might be thinking to yourself, I'm sorry, the who and the whats? But the humans, the Andorians, the Tellarites and the Vulcans were all part of the original series, and so we see pictures of those in the TV show. The other 2 are related to the animated series. So the Adoans have 3 legs and 3 arms, yellow skin and large lidless eyes, which is pretty freaky, but that's their thing. And the Cations look like giant cat people with tails and everything, and they purr. So basically cat people and a three-legged, three-armed alien species. Then you've got your human, the Andorian, Tellarite, and the Vulcans. And you'll see what we have here is the racial adds, depending on what those species are able to do. The humans are the luckiest ones. They get to draw on that luck ability a lot more than the others, but they're not as psychic as, say, the Vulcans. And we've got our strengths and our weaknesses on the races, depending on what those races are able to do. So the Cations are very dexterous, being cat-like. The Vulcans are very strong. When you're a Vulcan, you also have the ability to do the mind meld as well as the nerve pinch. So you've got a mind meld, you've got a mind wipe, you've got a couple of psychic abilities that you can enjoy. And you also have the Vulcan nerve pinch, which requires obviously just a little bit of strength and an understanding of biology. They're assuming that all player characters that are Vulcan automatically get trained in these, probably as part of their self-defense for joining Federation. And what they also do in this game is that if you wish to be a hybrid, so if you're going to be a human Andorian or a human and Vulcan, generally they're about the only real major mixes, or human and Klingon, and yes, they've got the racial profile in here for Klingons and Romulans as well. Then you pick one, and that's what you choose. So if you're half human, half Vulcan, you can choose the Vulcan stat line here as the modifiers, or stick with the human modifiers. You still be half human, half Vulcan, but it's just where those stats come from. And you could be a human that's grown up in the Vulcan, you just won't be very good at the psychic, and you won't be very good at the nerve pinch because you need to do a few other things. But whilst it's close to being a difference between your racial bonus and your background adjustment, it's getting close. Remember, this is in the 80s. We're still sort of in that box and dice feel of games where you have set roles and you're set in your ways. So this is branching out to also cater to that Star Trek universe where you did have quite a few people who were half Klingon, half human, or half human Andorian and half human Vulcans, and so on. And likely Vulcan / Romulans, because they're similar. Not quite the same, but they're similar. So we've started putting the details together. Character's name is Jared Saki. Player, the Eldar guy, me, thank you. Rank, Lieutenant Commander. Human, male. Current assignment, HMS Hood. And I've chosen the Lochnar class, which is a nice little ship that bounces around a little bit. Not quite a Constitution class, but you can't always be on top of a Constitution class. Still a major capital ship. And the area specialization is communications. And then everything else is blank because we haven't started yet. So I've worked out where we're going to end up, and we'll take it from there. So as I said, you could put a few characters together and then choose which ones you're going to be using on the various away teams. So it's got that very much next generation Star Trek feel, because they didn't just run with the same few people. Or you could do it the way the original series ran it, where you were almost using the same people. Captain Kirk was always someone just a little bit different, because normally the captain wouldn't be doing those things. It'd be the first officer and then security and blah, etc. But where would we be without Captain Kirk doing what Captain Kirk does? So this game uses lots of D10s. For the most part, it's only a few, maybe up to 3, and of course percentile dice. But there is a couple instances when it's just handier to have a whole lot of dice to be able to manage a particular step. So it's good to have at least a dozen 10-sided dice laying around just on the off chance, but you probably don't need more than, say, 6 or 7. Looking at the stat chart, we can see that the only modifiers for the human is under psi. Apart from that, it's just the flat rolls. So for the primary stats, being strength, endurance, intelligence, dexterity, charisma, 40 plus 3d10, and then adjusted by whatever racial profile. In order, and we're off. So that would be 14 points for 54 points on strength. $55 points in total, 40 plus the 3 dice, 55 on intelligence. Sorry, that was for endurance. This is for intelligence. $19. And 20 for charisma. For luck and psi, we roll percentile dice, and the humans have 0 modifier on the luck. Which is 34. And psi is minus 30. 46 goes to 16. So these are our initial stats. Strength 54, 55 endurance, 68 intelligence, 59 dex, 60 charisma, 34 luck, and 16. Now we get one more adjustment, and then we can start getting some skills. So what we do is we have a percentile roll, and we divide this by 2, and that's how many additional bonus points we get to add to our stats. So this is $63? Yeah, 63. So 32. After moving the points, we have 54 strength, 55 endurance, 83 intelligence, 65 on the dex, 71 charisma, 34 on the luck, and 16 on the psi. When you're adjusting these points with the bonus that you get, maximum of plus 30 to any one, and you can't improve your psi, but you can improve your luck, which can help down the way. And there's a lot of instances where you need to add a luck modifier or part of your luck ability when it comes to doing certain actions or dice rolls and so on. You can bring that into play. So the luckier you are, the better you are at some things, because as well as good, you also need to be lucky. So the first thing we have to work on are our pre-academy skills, which include a number of personal development skills, as well as education backgrounds. Half of them have to be from one and half have to be from the other, which is fine. And the number of skills that you have is your intelligence divided by 10. So for our character here with 83 intelligence, 8. So 4 have to be personal development and 4 have to be educational. And for each of these, you only roll 1d10, and we're looking at 1d10 plus 5, going to these particular skills. And if it's a language, you have to pick that language. You can pick a language a couple of times. And same thing with some of the sciences and so on. But for the most part, it's one roll per score, per actual skill. This is one of those instances where it's handy just to have their dice, and then you just roll them and assign them to where you want to assign. As I said, 4 of them have to be personal development and 4 of them have to be educational background. It's a D10 plus 5 on each of those, and these are your starting skills. So what we'll do is I'll knock all these out of the park, put it on the character sheet, and we'll work it from there. So for my personal development skills, I put language Klingon 15, because I had a 10, so I went to the highest one there. Negotiation diplomacy, streetwise, and I put something into modern marksmanship. Now I've got 4 more skills for education background with these dice rolls remaining. So after our pre-academy skill sets, we have 6 in computer operation, 7 in Federation history, 15 for the language Klingon, 11 negotiation diplomacy, 9 planetary ecology, 7 for the psychology of Klingon, 14 streetwise, and 12 for modern marksmanship. So it might be worthwhile just talking a little bit about skills. I'll be bringing this up a couple of times during creation, because often you don't need a lot of skills, like a lot of high level skills, in order to do what you want to do, but it's handy. All right, let me explain this in a little bit. So we've got the skills represent a percentage chance of success, but your chance of success is also based on your current skill and what you're trying to achieve. So as an example, Jared here has a 7 in Federation history. To ask something simple like, when would the Federation form? That might actually be anything from 5+. You don't need to make a roll. So you don't need to make a check. You just know when the official start date was. To know who the current leadership is, perhaps that might be a percentage roll. And if you had a 10 or higher, you may not need to know. Generally, the idea is at 40, that's considered a minimum professional level, which gives you competency in a lot of basic functions for that role. So there's a lot of things you don't need to make a roll for. But if you do need to make a roll, then you've got a good chance of success. With Klingon 15, just to say hi, how are you, I'd like a cup of tea, that might be enough for 15 points, not have to make a roll. If you wish to try and sound exactly like a native, that would be a roll. With a 15 and you wanted to say something a bit more complex, you may have an idea of the words but not the exact syntax or the exact words, then you make a roll, and with a 15% chance of success at this point. Obviously, in terms of communications, as we know where Jared is going to be moving to, he's going to gain a few more skills as age progresses. So this is pretty much between the ages of 12 to 18. These are the skills that you have or picked up. Turning on a computer, turning off a computer, basic functions can do. But anything more complex, not so much. And when it comes to trying to take one apart and put one back together again, not a lot of skill. When you have 0 in a skill, that's when you're relying on your luck to pull you into something. So you've always got 10% of this or something like that, so that you can bring that into play. When you need to do something and you don't know what you're doing, you can rely on luck to just get you through. Or hopefully So the next thing is joining Starfleet Academy, which means that you gain a set of skills just because you've joined Starfleet Academy. And these are the skills, and this is what gets what they're increased by. And we need to make those adjustments to the character sheet. Now that we've just gone through the academy, before we start our command school, we have these skills that everyone gets on top of the skills we've already gained. So our computer operation is now at 26. Klingon language is now at 25. What else seemed to improve? And a few things in like administration, astrophysics, law, history. History went up, as well as unarmed combat and some modern marksmanship. The next step is to do our command skills and some additional skills on top of that. Because we've chosen communications as our specialty, this is what we get to add to everything from here. So we get something, as you see here under languages, 40 points total, maybe in one language or spread among several. So I might include another couple of languages just to give me some extra bits of detail in there. So what we get to add to these is 1d10, and what the number of d10 we get to add is based on your intelligence minus 50. There's a little bit of a head mess here. So from our 83, minus 50 is 33. So it's 10% rounded up. So because we had 3.3, it goes to 4. So basically 10, which is the initial that you always have, plus bonus, which is 4 in the instance for Jared. So 14 dice get to actually be applied, and they get added to these particular skills. Only the ones that are listed inside here. So we roll the 14 dice. Oi, oi, oi. So I'll adjust those, put them through, and then we'll add them to the skill lists we've already got. So apart from the Klingon at 40, I've also got some skills in Gorn, Romulan and Vulcan, and the communication systems technology, and the procedures, some of the highest numbers, and we're off. So that gets us our academy skills, pre-academy, academy, and then our department head or department specific skills. We haven't finished yet, folks. We still get more. So after all that, we're now on to the cadet crews, with the cadet crews assignments and how they get adjusted. So once we've done our first cadet cruise, we also then work out our cadet cruise results, which may or may not mean that you have to do a second cruise, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth. But if you can knock it off in one, that's good. But we'll get to that in a moment. So, things we do is we do our initial cadet and we get on with it. Alright, so percentile dice against the following table with the following appliers, and we can do that. Now this is another instance where if you're lucky it's good, because the more luck you have, the better you have on your adjustments. Jared is not that lucky, and so gains a penalty. Now this is a note to talk about how the penalties work. So when you get an adjustment to the value, you'll see pluses and minuses. Everything is to the die result. So you'll get a minus 10 die result, plus 5 die result. Now if you need to get a 25 or less on your result, then when you make your dice roll, a negative applier is actually a good thing. Yeah? See how that works? So if we were very intelligent and very lucky, you can have quite a good modifier to your overall dice roll. In this instance, we have not a lot of luck on our side, but we do have -10 on the dice roll because the intelligence is 70 plus, but +5 on the dice roll because the luck is 40 or less. So let's roll these dice with a -5 on the adjustment. That is 10. -5 goes to 5. Which means you're on a starship. Now generally they talk about Constitution class, but they mean that as an example of a starship. You're just on a Federation starship doing Federation starship things. So you're on a capital ship, basically. So over here, for our cadet crews, we mark off that it was on a starship. Now, did we pass with honours, or pass with high honours? Let's find out. The die roll modifiers, starship service, you're at -20 on the dice roll because that's good. 40 or less is +5 for luck. So being lucky is just as good as being in having the right location. And what we need to get is past. We need to get 60 or under. If you get over 60, you didn't pass and you have to redo it again. Ouch. So let's see if we passed. We have a -15 on our dice roll. $66. Thankfully, we were on the right starship. We managed to get a pass. And obviously, as you can see, if you pass well, then you get an adjustment on your first lot of crew assignments, whereas we get no adjustment here for crew assignments. Because we passed, we get 5d10 on skills that we can apply these to for anything, not just the ones in our normal lists, but across the board. So we get to do a little bit more open-ended play. So we'll roll these dice and then we'll assign them to skills as we see fit. Okay, we'll apply those skills and then we'll move on. Because our character is going to be department head, they go to command school and they learn the following skills. So now that we've done our academy, cadet, command school, now we're moving into our post-academy experience, but our pre-game experience. So this is where we work out how many terms we served, followed by some of this, and how long each term was. And then you get to add more skills due to the terms, which is pretty good. So, as we stated a long time ago, we're going to be a Lieutenant Commander, Lieutenant JG, or Lieutenant Commander, Commander, +1 term, and so on. So we work out the number of terms, Then we do the exact same thing as we did, well not exact same thing, but similar to what we did before, where each term you work on whereabouts you actually spent that time, which could be anywhere from star bases and academies all the way through to being out in the front lines. And then we get service skill rolls. That's where we get extra skills to be added. And then that's pretty much where we move on from there to be completed. Then we work out how old we are and we're good to go. So this is the last step before we can start playing, and that's working out how many terms, followed by where, and then how long, and then additional skills. Alright, so let's get on with that. Alright, so the first thing we do is work out how many terms we're going to serve. And that's a D10 divided by 2, rounded down, but minimum is 1, obviously. Then it's plus 1 term, because the character is going to be a department head. The luck and intelligence cancel each other out, because the higher intelligence is -1, lower luck is +1. And we're coming in at a lieutenant commander for +1 terms. It is not going to be on a Constitution starship. So what we're looking at is department head and lieutenant commander, so for +2. So D10 divided by 2, rounded down, but +2. That's how many terms. So that's 2. That's a total of 4 terms. So the length of term for the first term is 2. We divide a D10 by 2, so that gives us 2 years. And now we work out where we spent that time. This is going to be adjusted by our intelligence, but not by our luck. So it's -10 on our intelligence from our intelligence on this dice roll. So the first term for 2 years was set on -10, goes to 29. 29 is the military division. Military division. For 2 years. Now we do that for the other 3 terms as well. So the 4 terms spent, military division for 2 years, 3 years in the colonization division, 1 year at a starbase, and 1 year in the merchant marines. For a total of 5, 6, 7 years worth of service post-academy. Okay, so for every 2 years in service, you get to roll a D10 for skills. This was 7, so that's 3. And then because the intelligence was high, 70 plus, 2 additional dice are added, and because 1 of those is on a starbase, that's an extra D10 that's going to be added to Streetwise or gaming. So these are the skills that can be applied anywhere first. And we'll put those skills to use. Now we add 1 more D10 to our Streetwise skill, and we're adding 3. Just some final numbers to work out. Now that we've got everything all done with our skills and our placements and where it's all going, it's your weapon skill plus your dex, all up divided by 2. So we have a 52% for modern weapons and a 42% on hand-to-hand, adjusted by everything that you could possibly imagine, but we'll take it from there. So the character has 65 dex, divide that by 10, so 6.5, drop the half, because we round down, we lose all the halves and whatever's, so that's 6 plus 4 goes to 10, and that's how many of these action points we actually have. So 10. So what we'll do is we'll shade that out all the way up to about here. Now these action points are used for movement, and each action point to move is, say, 5 feet. Then you'll have some action points to aim, to ready, to fire, as well as to jump about, dive roll, flying punch, all the heroic things you get to do. The more action points you have, the more of those you can do. So if you want to move and duck behind something, if you want to move 15 feet, then duck behind, that could be 3, 4 action points taken up. And then to ready and aim a weapon could be another 3. Then to fire it could be another 3, which would take up all of your action points. Somebody else who might have a few more extra points will be able to do a few more pieces of movement, steady the weapon, or take a more precise shot. So the action points disappear pretty quick. But generally that's how many points it takes to move things, and the GM will be able to say, when it asks what do you want to do, the player will say I want to do the following. Okay, that's X number of action points, and every round this is what you got. So this is what our character looks like. And as you can see from here, we've managed to fill it out a fair bit. Stats, and then general skills. So the way the skills work, from about 40 plus, you're looking at standard level, like a good proficiency, which means that to do certain things, you may not even roll if it's within what's deemed that professional level, and so on. So when you're in your 20, if you got the 20s to 30s, you're actually very competent, but not to that full-on professional level. And something that might require a skill roll for someone who has a 25, someone who has a 40, they may not need to roll. And so on. So if you've got a 90 in something, then you may not need to roll for a lot of things because they're just considered so standard. But when you do need to roll, there are going to be lots of adjustments made to that dice roll, because obviously you'll need to roll for the specialized nature or the difficulty of the topic. And all modifiers adjust the dice roll, not the result roll. So this result roll of 41 is always a result roll of 41, but if you're difficult, so what may happen if you want to negotiate who's going to pay a bar tab and you're doing it with Klingons, the fact that we also speak the language of Klingon to a good proficient level helps. Maybe not a problem, but if somebody who didn't have the language, and I got a little bit of psychology there too, but if you didn't have the language, then perhaps your negotiation diplomacy skills will be considerably lacking, and you'd have to make a dice roll to make them pay for the bar tab and the damages from the actual drinking, because I'm sure that there's a few damages involved with drinking with Klingons. There are some star bases where in neutral zones, it might be Orion held or someone else, where you'll have different races that just sort of linger. So you'll know, you'll get to meet different groups along the way. And that's the benefit, that's the beauty of this game. You've just got so much to work with. It's fantastic. These are our action points, 10. They're the ones shaded out. So doing something is 10 action points worth every round. Firing and aiming. Aiming and firing is like 5 action points in total. And so on. So today we made a character, and we've made a communications officer who's had a reasonable career, and now we've got to work out the age, which is going to be made up of 18 plus the cadets, plus the command crew, the command school, plus our terms of reference here, and we'll put the final number up here. So to join the academy, you're at 18, it's 4 years, goes to 22. The cadet cruise is a year, it's 23. 2 years for the command school, which takes to 25, and then 7 years of service, bringing us to an age of 32, which is an excellent age for a lieutenant commander on the HMS Hood, which is on the Lochnar class ship. I just want to finalize everything by thanking everyone, and thanks for sticking by and watching through this. This is an interesting game, and it's got some very interesting pieces to it, so I hope that if you've had some fond memories of playing it, please, obviously, let us know. Now like, subscribe, and do all those things, and we'll try and get some more content out over the next few weeks. We've got a few ideas, we've got some Patreons with some requests, so I'll sort all that out and we'll get it all happening. But I just want to sign off and thank everybody for listening, and please again like, subscribe, all of that. We want to try and capture as much of our experiences as possible. So as we run through certain games, I understand not everyone's interested in one thing or another, but it's always handy just to know how mechanics worked. And this is an era of fresh mechanics where there were no bad ideas. Well, there were, but nobody was listening. And so sometimes the games produced 1 or 2 very cool items, some new groundbreaking skills or abilities or styles, and then we work it from there. So anyway, all right, well, thanks again. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate all of your support. Okay, have fun. Play safe. Bye.